Yeah, and my next question, I'd be curious your point. We've talked a lot about on here with the new NIL rules and the transfer portal and just the ability for talent now to disperse across all levels, right? It's not so concentrated, maybe necessarily at the top schools, because they're not controlling these kids now for 4 years like they were in the past. If after a year or two at a Power 5 school, you're not playing, there is the ability to maybe step down a level or go to another team that's maybe not quite at the level of the school you're coming from. And now this talent doesn't get concentrated in one spot so closely. Is that a reason? Is it a coincidence that we're starting to see some of these group of 5 schools compete? Last year, Cincinnati, like some of these schools we're not traditionally used to seeing at the top of the power structure of college football. Is it connected to this changing landscape of where it's just easier for talented players to change schools to go somewhere where they can play?
Yeah, it is. If you look, one of Cincinnati's better players last year was a running back who transferred from Alabama. The immediate eligibility transfer has been a significant game changer. The quarterback for App State is on his third school, Chase Bryce. He started, he was at Clemson, then he went to Duke, and now he's at App State. The quarterback for Marshall is on his third school. He was at a Power 5 school before at Texas Tech. Now he's there. Players want playing time. Players want opportunity. They have more freedom of movement. And I do think, to your point about NIL, there are places that outside of Alabama can't get every player. And Georgia can't get every player. Ohio State can't get every player. And there's fans that care in Boise and in Huntington, West Virginia and Boone, North Carolina. They're like, hey, we'll give you a commercial for the hamburger franchise here.
Yeah.
We will let you have a signing, an autograph signing at the car dealership, so you can make some money at those places. And I do think that has a chance to at least level it out a little bit. Players can go a lot of places and be able to A, play, and B, make a little money.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's definitely. I was curious your answer because I don't think it's at all disconnected. I think it's directly connected to why we're seeing such so many teams that we're just unaccustomed to seeing be able to, years back, I know App State beat Michigan, what seems like 100 years ago, but so it has happened. It just seems like it's happening more frequently. And when it does happen, people aren't quite as concerned as, surprised. And as you mentioned, almost all the guys driving all these upsets this year started out at Power 5 schools that, it's just, I think it's an interesting landscape. The last thing I'll ask you before we jump in to your family and your youth sports experience with your 3 children, the overarching, kind of storyline going on now as we sit here with the early part of this college football season underway is this whole idea of whether or not they're going to expand the college football playoff. And right before the season kicked off back in August, the report came out that they're seriously considering within the next couple of years expanding the playoff from its current format. And I'm one to suggest that in college football, there is a very significant difference between the top 6 to 8 teams and then the rest, that next core group, right? Even when you look every week at the top 25, to be the 17th, the 18th, 19th best team in the country, they're not going to win the national championship. They're just not, right? It's the same usual suspects every year. So I guess my concern and I'd be curious yours, my concern over expanding the college football playoff would be for that 1 seed, 2 seed, for Georgia, for Alabama. Those teams, when it was 4 teams, kill whoever they play as the 4 seed. All of a sudden now they play an 8 seed. They play a 16 seed. The more it expands, are we going to just see blowout after blowout now in the first couple of rounds as we expand this college football playoff?
Well, it's a legitimate concern, but I think here are the benefits from it. First of all, if it's going to be a 12-team structure, there's going to be a bye for the top 4 seeds. Right. So we don't have to see, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State playing an 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 seed. So you're going to have 5 through 12 playing each other. And I think those, generally speaking, are going to be pretty competitive games, and they're going to be compelling. They're going to be on campuses. I mean, they're going to be the biggest games that have ever happened in some of these college towns. If you look, like last year, Ole Miss would have hosted a playoff game. Are you kidding? That would have been the biggest home game Ole Miss has ever had. Oklahoma State could have, I think, hosted one last year. If not them, Baylor and Waco. So that would be, I just love the campus flavor of that. And I do think those early games will be compelling. And then, yeah, okay, we're going to get to a point where number one Georgia is playing, maybe the number 5 team, and it's not going to be close. That's the nature of the beast already. I don't think we necessarily lose anything there. We're just getting more games that look like the games that we've had. But I just think a bigger playoff pulls in more teams, more fan bases, more excitement, and keeps more fans engaged in the playoff chase as you go through November. As it is now with a 4-team race, most times you get in November, there's like 6, maybe 7 schools that have a chance. Now you're going to have 20, and it's just going to be all about getting in. And that selection Sunday, the big excitement of seeing, oh, we're in, and where are we seated, and who are we playing, and where are we going? That'll have some of the flavor of the basketball tournament that's been so popular, where just getting in will make a season for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think the notion of the games being on campus is great. I think what makes college football so special and makes it significantly different than a lot of markets in the NFL is that hometown vibe, right? Athens, Georgia, just the environment in Columbus, Ohio. It's just a very different world. I think sometimes those games being played on a neutral site become very similar to the Super Bowl, right? Where it's executive, it's corporate, it's sponsor driven. It's not the true fans. It's not the students. It's not the kids who kind of drive the audience all year long when they're playing their home games. They're not necessarily attending those big college football playoff games. So from that regard, I get it. But I guess the part I keep coming back to is, and you said it, this year with only, in the past couple of years with only 4 teams making the playoffs, there was really only 2 or 3 that had a chance to win it. 6 that had a legitimate argument for being in it. Now I'm going to try to fill those 2 that can win it, maybe 3 on a good year. You're going to have Alabama, you're going to have Georgia, and you're going to have somebody else, right? In past years, it was Clemson. Sometimes it's Ohio State. Whoever that 3rd team that legitimately, when the season starts, can win it. But only 6 teams can compete in it. But now I got 12 spots. I don't know, like does Ole Miss last year, if they were hosting as an 11, if they were in as a whatever seed, they hosted a game. Great environment. Did they have any chance of winning the national championship?
Probably not. No.
Yeah.
No.
So
I mean,
that's my only. We're just my concern is that we're just adding games for the sake of adding games. Now, the counter argument you brought up basketball is, does Florida Gulf Coast, did they have a chance years back when they made that great run? So I understand football and basketball are a little different dynamic as far as adding extra games. But the point, I'm with you. Listen, will I watch it? Absolutely. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. But that's a good question for you. I mean, as a player, and thinking back to your 18 to 22-year-old self, if you're playing 15, 16, 17 games, is that too much?
I think it's a lot. I think it's a lot. I think they're going to have to figure out a way. But again, it connects to our the easiest thing would be, and it goes back to our earlier point about those lower schools kind of getting that blood money to go play, A&M and Notre Dame. Those would be the easy games to get rid of. Just wipe those games out, take those easy non-conference games off your schedule, and that opens up a couple weeks.